Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this webcast today, Defining the Higher Ed Classroom 2024 and Beyond. My name is Cindy Davis. I'm the Content Director for AV Technology. Before we begin, I just want to cover a few housekeeping items. At the top right of your screen, you'll see the 4 little boxes at the top right, and you'll find multiple engagement tools there, including the Help Engagement tool. If you're having any technical issues, just add them into the Ask Question box, and we'll be monitoring that throughout the hour. And at the end of the webcast, be sure to check out our related content. You'll see the related content window on your screen, and it contains additional information from each of our sponsors for you to download. This is an interactive panel, and we hope that means you too. So throughout the webcast, please submit your questions via Ask Question tool, and I'm going to just pick and choose those throughout the conversation as they kind of work their way in, so that you're really joining the discussion, and I hope you do, please. This is being recorded, and the on-demand version will be available in about 24 hours. Just use the same link, audience link you used to sign in today. So next, I would like to thank our sponsors, JVC, Harman, Sony, and Yamaha UC. So I'm going to ask each of our panelists to go ahead and introduce themselves and provide a little bit more information about their company as it relates to today's discussion. So Tim, if you'd start off, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you, Cindy. Good to be here again. So my name is Tim Mankey. I'm a field systems engineer with Yamaha Unified Communications, and we're a world leader in audio processing. We provide in this space really world-class audio with unparalleled clarity, seamless integration, and a really sleek and discreet design. Very cost-effective, very revolutionary products we bring to market for use.
Great. And Kyle.
Thank you, Cindy. My name is Kyle Barron. I'm the product manager for Network AV here at AMX. I've been at AMX for about 7 years now, and been in the IT and the network admin fields for just over 14 years. AMX, under the Harman professional umbrella, we've recently launched several new products from a Muse control platform offering a multi-language programming solution, a low-code, no-code solution, and the Varia touch panels offering a persona-based solution. SVSI has recently launched the N2600 series, offering that USB-C connectivity, dual streaming solutions, and really just making a robust approach to transport of audio, video, data, and USB across the network platform.
Great, thank you. And Craig.
Thank you, Cindy. It's an honor and a pleasure to be a part of this discussion. Hello, everyone. My name is Craig Yanagi, and I'm the National Product Manager at JVC Professional Video, where I've been involved with the product planning and marketing for over 18 years. Some background information about JVC Professional Video. We provide solutions for all levels of video production for schools, houses of worship, stadiums, and arenas. Some key users we have are all 14 of Ryan Seacrest Foundation Seacrest Studios, the Ivy League for streaming of multiple sporting events, NCAA Division I football, the NFL, and the XFL for coaching analysis and game footage. Our PTZ cameras, camcorders, and IP studio switchers have been recognized as among the best in their class for 2 years running by AV Technology, Systems Contractor News, Sound and Video Contractor, and TV Technology. We've incorporated the latest and efficient technologies like direct Ethernet connectivity, supporting NDI HX that has significantly lowered the cost and complexity of integration. And we've provided these products affordable enough for the most budget-conscious institutions. Our latest 4K PTZ camera now has 5 new auto tracking features specifically designed with stage presentations in mind. Subject tracking, characteristics, and scene framing can be preset and saved, providing both hands-free operation for the presenter and an ideal viewing experience for your audience. These cameras can be used individually, connecting via USB like a webcam, or in combination of existing systems via SDI or HDMI with serial RS-232 control, or by power over Ethernet with control over IP, making your investment with JVC evergreen. Our IP production switchers powered by vMix can record 4 to 8 channels of independent video and stream up to 3 content delivery networks simultaneously. Most importantly, you can call or email our support team for help with your equipment, and all PTZ cameras come with our peace of mind coverage, where defective cameras are replaced within 48 to 72 hours. Individually or turnkey, we provide solutions for your institution's production system, person to person, glass to glass. So please take a look at the material we've provided for this event and reach out to us if you have any questions. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Craig. And Lon, if you would.
Hi, I'm Lon Vance with the University of Florida. I'm the manager of the AV design and installation team. I've been with UF for about 12 years now, and I come from a higher end home integration background before I got to higher ed.
Great. Thank you. And Matt. I'm sorry, did I cut you off, Lon? You're done. Okay, good. Matt, if you would.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Cindy, and to the other panelists for having me. I'm happy to be here. My name is Matt Banker. I'm the Director of AV Services here at the Geisel School of Medicine at Dartmouth. I've been in the Dartmouth ecosystem for about 12 years. Prior to that, I worked in concerts throughout New England, mostly as a monitor engineer. But Geisel School of Medicine, I want to mention, is a professional school that's tied to Dartmouth. Dartmouth has a handful of professional schools. Geisel happens to be one of them. And we have a split campus, and we're going to talk about that a little bit when we talk about some of the technologies and why it makes a difference for us. We have a central campus here in one town, and then we also have a campus that's at our hospital, which is the next town over, and that presents some unique challenges for us. But that's my background.
Wonderful, thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us. So I cover a lot of verticals with AV technology, and certainly in 2020 when everything happened, higher ed was the quickest to pivot. Everybody had to pivot, go home, work, and whatnot, but higher education as a whole pivoted, I would say, the quickest, because you really had to get a whole bunch of students and the instructors back to learning immediately. It wasn't just one-on-one, doing this. And since then, everybody got back. You were the quickest to get butts in the seats, and then using that technology that you had already set up for streaming and remote classes. So really interesting dynamic has happened. Many instructors don't want to go back to the old ways of doing things and want to take a look at what has really unfolded post-pandemic and what the future looks like. So I want to go back and I want to ask each one of you, and start off with panelists from higher ed, which AV technologies in the past couple of years have really made the most significant impact in the classroom for your campuses? So, look, Matt, if you'd start off with that.
Yeah, sure. For us, I think you mentioned that when the pandemic happened, everyone went to remote learning. And when we went back to butts and seats, we went back to things in the classroom, people really expected that same version of usability of technology. And translating that to a physical space for us was interesting, for sure. Technology from manufacturers have come a long way to really make that impactful and equitable for everybody. The approach that we have here at Geisel is centered on that equity, really from the presenter perspective, the in-room participant perspective, the remote participant perspective, and the technician perspective. So it's really about making the camera angles, multiple camera feeds. It's all about PTZ cameras and presets for us. It's about beamforming microphones, and it's about remote capabilities for the system. So you can have a centralized place where you can touch the systems and reboot things to get the systems up and running. Less boots on the ground for us. So I'd say the three for us are beamforming microphones, cameras, and just the backbone of conferencing in general, and making sure you can use different platforms. You can use a voice over IP. You can use SIP, and getting them all to communicate to each other and integrating that into a control system for us. That's been the key. But whole room audio, that's the biggest thing for us.
Before, so let's, I hate the word pandemic, but so 2019, let's say, how much of that was already in place?
Not a lot. We mostly had hang and bang systems. We had BYOD type systems where we would have microphones in the room, but they were mostly wireless microphones that people had to wear. There was a lot of interaction. People had to touch the microphones, manage batteries, that kind of thing. And we would have bridges that would either put it to an installed computer, or it would switch the USB feed to a user's computer. And then they would run, in our application, they would run Zoom mostly. Cisco is still a big piece for us too, and there's others in there too. But they would run it from their computer, but there would always be issues in participants in the room wanting to share screen in that same meeting without managing feedback properly, and it just opened up a can of worms for us. So pre-pandemic, there wasn't a lot of it, and there was a lot more hand-holding, I'd say, for us to actually make sure that went smoothly. Yeah, so to answer your question, there wasn't a lot of it.
Great, great. So, Lon, how about at the University of Florida? I mean, what are the technologies that you feel are really have moved your classrooms, post-pandemic?
It's very much the same as Matt. I mean, it's miking the entire room, cameras, tracking cameras, or preset zones, depending on the classroom and the layout. It's confidence monitors being added so instructors aren't tied to a podium, things like that. That, when we started it, it was very small. We did the best we could in a short amount of time to get people in the seats, and then you kind of have to adapt and grow and add stuff over time to get to a point that it's a usable space now. We were well on the way before 2020. We were starting to move in that direction. I think that 2020 kind of pushed everything ahead about 5 years.
I think that's industry-wide. That seems to be the case.
Yeah.
And certainly the manufacturers got right on that. So, Kyle, how about what are you seeing from your customers' perspectives?
So, we're seeing an increased need and a demand for simplified control within the spaces, an automated presence, an adjustment that can be made from, did a class start on time? Did anybody, or did a meeting start on time? Did an event start on time? Automatic cancellations, really the ability to adapt multiple manufacturers, be able to control multiple manufacturers' equipment under a single, control ecosystem has really spurred out of COVID, right? Just based on availability, parts and pieces and component shortages. It's really driven, no longer of a walled garden approach to the learning space, but rather a open need to control multiple verticals.
Interesting. Tim, how about from you?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Cindy. For sure is more cameras, right? You and I have spoken in the past about AV, that the A is really the most important part of AV. Without good audio, you can have great video, and it really comes to nothing if you don't have the good audio. But exactly what everyone else is saying, we're seeing multiple cameras, and what we're working towards that end is making sure that our beamforming microphone systems can send very accurate information on where the speakers, we're focusing on where speech is, not necessarily just noises in the room, but actually focusing on human speech and directing that Cartesian information to the camera systems. So we are seeing more and more cameras. Cameras are being much more important in the equation, both in higher education in every space right now, as well as BYOM, not so much BYOD anymore, but people want to come in, wirelessly connect, and bring their own meetings and their own presentations, as Matt had mentioned, without interfering with the audio and creating echo in the room. So that's where we're focused, is on the beamforming side and making sure we can communicate well with the new camera systems that are now a pretty heavy requirement in these rooms.
Absolutely. And Craig.
So what we found was that the customers, it's been mentioned before, but they want to use products and technologies that they are familiar with and what they see as being proven. We've also seen that they're also looking for support that they can count on. And of course, price, because of the implementation of the institutions needing to put these new technologies into place for their instruction. As I mentioned earlier, the implementation of Ethernet technology has significantly lowered the cost and complexity of system integration. And it's gotten to the point where you can actually bring in stage lighting, LED stage lighting, utilizing Ethernet connectivity. And so, and advancements of technologies like NDI, HX has really made manufacturers, made it easier for integration of multiple manufacturers' equipment to be incorporated into different systems.
Cool. So, you know what I'd like to move to talk about audio and video separately. They need to be married, of course, and certainly by now, I think everybody out there knows that audio is the most important component. Tim already said the A comes before the A and B. So, Tim, start us off, if you would. I mean, talk about the different types of audio systems, whether it's microphones, speakers, that you'd find in a classroom. And if everybody just kind of build on that and what you're using, that would be great.
Absolutely. So in the majority of all of our education designs, we are doing our dynamic multi-beam ceiling microphones. And again, we have multiple beams, can track multiple participants in the space. And moving towards where you don't have to worry about setup with these microphones. You don't have to define where the pickup areas should be. You should be able to move your table arrangements around in your classrooms wherever you want without worrying about pickup area. We're also seeing Yamaha's bringing in line array speakers, which I haven't seen in this space before. I've been in conferencing only for about 20 years now. And to see pro audio being brought into this, line array speakers, and again, to Craig's point, everything's powered by Ethernet, including the 30-watt VXL speakers. These things now allow for audio to come from where the screens are, not necessarily from overhead speakers as we've done in the past. People feel more comfortable when the audio is coming from the screen, and they bookend it well. And with line array technology, you can have very even sound pressure, so the people that are close to the speakers aren't blown away, and the people at the back of the classroom in these spaces can hear very comfortably as well. So these are some of the advancements we're seeing in the education space with the systems that we're bringing in, is the beamforming microphones, whether it be wireless mics you might need in the room, lectern mics, the ability to add in a couple of clip-on presenter wireless mics within our systems as well. So that's what we're focused on. And again, it is all Ethernet based, and most of our designs now are getting rid of analog cabling. Everything's powered by the switch. We're seeing much more of my designs that are just simply Ethernet and USB. So that's what we're seeing, and that's what we're doing in these spaces as a manufacturer.
And I'd say similar to what we're doing here at Geisel, or what we're looking to do. We've had a couple instances where we're utilizing the same technologies of those beamforming mics to do voice lift, where in the pandemic, what we saw was we had this big effort to clean microphones, to clean things in the system. We would actually go around and make a really strong effort in case to make sure things were, sanitized, right? The topic of voice lift came up, and that's something that we haven't quite nailed yet. But distributed audio systems with using those same ceiling microphones for us is something that people have definitely been requesting. We have some beta use cases on campus, but that's that's another piece that ties into in-room audio that still feels equitable for people wearing headphones that would be on the remote end. So without having to touch physical things in the room.
And that's something we have addressed. We've added a second Dante channel to support voice lift. So that is something we are seeing a big ask for now that ceiling mic, beam tracking mics are becoming more prevalent. People are asking for some of the more traditional abilities like voice lift, which traditionally is limited to table mics, right? So yeah, we're seeing a push in that area, Matt, for sure.
Lon, how about at University of Florida?
I mean, it's basically the same thing. It has to be good audio. It doesn't matter how much money you spend on audio. If it's not processed correctly, it's going to be wrong. Almost everything is now Dante or some kind of audio over IP solution. It has to be easy to set up. It can't be something like 10 years ago would take you 2 days to ring out a room. It's got to be something you can connect, get it moving, and then tweak it a little bit for your room space. But I mean, having another extra channels of audio from your ceiling array mics, that's not only for voice lift, but for assisted listening. To run it to another channel for that, you're trying to be equitable for everyone. That includes, people that need assisted listening in their classrooms.
Mm-hmm.
So all that combined, I mean, audio's, like I said, extremely important. But if it's not working right, you can't rely on just Zoom or your UC codec of choice to do echo cancellation anymore with the number of mics we're putting in these places.
Well, I actually have a question for you. You mentioned assisted listening. That's, I don't want to say hot topic, but it's definitely something on our minds too, for sure, for ADA, and just making sure we have an answer for that. Have you gone digital for that? Have you been using Dante for ALDs? Have you been putting in like RF systems?
We've been playing with, there's a manufacturer out there that has a system that you tie, they scan a QR code and it connects it to their phone. They use their own personal device, which is already set up for their use, and the tone that they want to that they can pick up best, and use that. We still have the old analog systems out there. We just use an output of a DSP for, but the newer systems are using Dante for their assisted listening channel.
Nice.
I'd like to, before we go on, ask the audience if you would share what audio, what you're using in your classrooms. What solutions have you come up with? Voice lift also, I think that's a really good one. I know many people have asked about that. So audience, please share that if you would. And if you've got any questions specific to our panel about audio, put those in the questions as well. So, it used to be that the audio is audio, video is video, and they each did their own thing. But now, as we've all been talking about, they work together. And is that, you talk about that, and actually, Craig, if you would, I mean, with the PTZ cameras that, that work with microphone systems?
Well, it depends on the application, but I believe that Tim could speak more to this as far as latency latency is concerned. I think that's a major topic of consideration, especially for live events. Not more so with programming that's recorded and then edited later on. But for live events, definitely I think you would still need to hang your hat on your traditional SDI connection for the least amount of latency.
Well, it would depend on what the application is, right, Craig? If you're talking just basic presets within the classroom, we can handle that with our very, very easily. I see a question coming in here too about how many cameras you can effectively have in the room with beamforming mics. And Really, there's the limits on the camera manufacturer side, how many they can conglomerate and have control of, will output very fast, very accurate information on where the human sources are in the room. And our camera partners base their presets on those very, very quickly. So speed of that update information is important. Craig, you're absolutely right. That might be a little bit different about what you were talking about as far as latency for capture, but information from the microphones to the cameras is extremely fast. And our camera company partners have been able to base presets very, very well on that. So I would say to the number of cameras, you reach a point where there are only so many presets you want, irrespective of the number of cameras you have. And there are limits to the number of cameras you're going to have in the room based on really what you want to do in there. It's like having the, like Lon said about having the confidence monitors in there. That's a big thing, but it's limited to the number of cameras you can do as well. You don't want too many. We've all gotten that motion sickness when there's too much camera movement in these meetings. You want smooth tracking as well. That's one thing to consider with your cameras is how do they track? How do they cut from one camera to the other? So.
Yeah, in our typical systems, we have 4 inputs as a norm.
That's common.
In our sports applications, we go as high as 8, with 8 separate recording capabilities, and that has a lot to do with the various camera angles and slow motion replay and things of that nature.
Great. We actually have quite a few questions coming in. One, Matter Lon, please define voice lift for your applications.
That one's pretty easy. It's audio reinforcement of the speaker within the room. So you're trying to reinforce the mic, bring the microphone back into the room so everyone can hear it. In a small room, 25-person classroom, probably not a big idea. Big thing that needs to be done. You get into a 200-seat auditorium, and you have to offer voice lift of that instructor to the people farther back in the room, as well as sending that information out via your UC codec of choice without having the UC codec pick up the microphone that's being amplified in the room.
Yeah, and the particular application that I was mentioning, when I say voice lift, I mean like mix minusing from the microphone, the beamforming microphones in the ceiling in our application. The thought is that the mix minus lobes from those microphones get reinforced in separate zones throughout the ceiling. So it's a form of mix minus, or it could be.
And again, just to round that concept out, the whole concept of voice lift in conferencing or in education has always been what we mentioned earlier. I think it was Lon who mentioned, or Matt, equity. When voice lift is the concept that if I'm sitting next to somebody, I hear them at a certain level, a very comfortable level. Well, the person 30 foot away needs to hear that person at that same comfortable level. So you're lifting the voice somewhere else in the room and you're using a microphone, and it adds a complexity to systems. Voice lift is a really big deal if you want to add that into your room, because not only are the microphones now sending the audio to somewhere else, but you're now creating possible feedback loops by reinforcing those mics back into the room. So voice lift is a requirement for usually larger spaces or for audio requirements. But yes, that's what voice lift does, is it takes everyone in the room and gives them that equity of feeling like you are next to the person that's 30 feet away.
And that works also for for remote as well, right? To bring remote participants into the classroom.
Yeah.
Yes. You want to hear the far end participants at that same comfortable level as well. Like somebody mentioned earlier, I forget who it was, but they talked about equity at every point, and that is important.
Great. I got a question coming in, and I'm not sure I'm going to read this correctly. How is everyone tackling the ceiling array mic voice lift? I'm actually trying to eliminate a lavalier in a mid-sized room.
I can talk about
so
that.
since we,
no, go ahead.
yeah,
Sorry.
please do. Go ahead, Matt.
Okay.
I was just going to say it's not an
go.
easy thing. So go ahead, Matt. It's not an easy thing to do.
I was going to say, for us, you mentioned it, Tim. You mentioned the feedback issue. And it all comes, especially when you're using it for video conferencing in particular, using those same, the one that we use has multiple lobes, right? So you can take those individual lobes and you can feed AEC, and AEC is acoustic echo cancellation, reference channels back into itself or reference the other channels, and that helps with it quite a bit, both for the far end and for in-room. So what we've kind of experimented with both. The technology's gotten better to where we've been able to use a single Dante channel and route that in a large enough room to a mix minus, and that's been okay. But we've also used auto mixers, but we've had probably the most luck with using individual lobes and reference AEC channels. However, that last one I just mentioned is very difficult to set up and very time consuming.
So call Matt if you want some advice. So I actually want to move on to audio, video rather, because we're marrying the two here. So Craig, what are some of the advances that have really enabled that connection? And we've heard about the beamforming microphones, but then we've got the auto tracking. Talk a little bit about video in the classroom.
So, okay, auto tracking, the implementation of AI, if you will. Auto tracking technology has really advanced quite a bit in the last couple of years, to the point where you can actually set up cameras, preset cameras, so that they capture specific scenes within a frame. So how to explain that? Say you have a large whiteboard in the middle of the stage, and you have a instructor that stands to the left or to the right of the whiteboard. Well, you don't want the auto tracking to be following the instructor the whole time, because that'll take away from the focus on the whiteboard. You can set up the whiteboard so that if the instructor's on the left-hand side of the stage, the camera will keep that frame regardless of if the instructor moves around in that frame area. Should the instructor move to the right, the preset could be made so that without touching the camera or controls, the camera will automatically pan to the right, putting the whiteboard and the instructor in frame, but freezing the camera so that it doesn't arbitrarily start auto tracking just the instructor. There's more and more in-depth, more intricate ways of setting up the camera, where if you have multiple zones in of the stage, you could set it so that the characteristics of the camera either focuses on the entire scene, the entire frame, or the individual that you've targeted within that. So the advancements within the camera manufacturers have really come a long way.
So Kyle, I know you talked about walled gardens, and I know interoperability has been something that we've talked about in this industry forever. Not sure it will ever be completely. I'm not sure there's a panacea out there just yet. But where does control systems come into helping the interoperability between the cameras and speakers and microphones?
So I think that the control system comes in to add that layer of automation. The decision, the decision making that can be done to simplify the control in the space. I think that one of the key areas in the classroom, in the higher ed, is an easier experience, right? For the instructors, and a reliable one that's depended upon. And the ability of that control system to couple the microphones, the ceiling arrays, the speakers, the DSPs, the video control, the cameras, and move all of that together harmoniously between one of them is kind of the key there. That obviously we're seeing and that should be thought of.
So, because we'll have also been talking about interoperability. I mean, that's what our industry does really well. But coming back from into the classroom, we heard that, well, we heard before, let's say 2019, classroom technologies weren't being used because they were too hard to use, even though integrators did an amazing job setting them up, thinking that made them easy to use. Thankfully, there's a lot of products now that really help that, the video conferencing, and they talk to each other. So what does the automated classroom look like today? And where can we push that? And Matt and Lon, I'd love to hear how you've automated your classrooms. Lon, why don't you start off?
It's having the correct control in the room, a user interface that's simple. It's really simplified. When an instructor walks into the room, they touch the screen and it sets it up for 90% of the use case. The way the room's used most of the time, we run scripts on our PCs, so the PCs are set up properly with dual display and main desktop, extended desktop, instead of duplicating accidentally or someone leaving it in a state where it was duplicated. Monitoring all the equipment in the room that we can for remote support. I mean, that's huge for us. It saves a lot of time. We can log into our control systems. We can log into our projectors, our TVs, and change an input for if we need to. If they can't figure something out, we can set it up. We can log into the PC in the room and walk them through something really quick and not slow down classes. Changing from old lamp projectors to laser style projectors that most manufacturers are at now. You don't have to change lamps all the time and have a classroom down just because of lamps like that. I think it's going to move more towards individualized setup per instructor or professor or individual class, where you walk in and it's going to be set up for this type of learning versus the next instructor prefers it another way. That we can do that by either tapping into their phone information or some kind of dongle if they carry on them that has personal identifier that lets them set the room up the way they want when they walk into it.
Yeah,
please do.
I'll echo that. I mean, everything you said, Lon, is spot on for us too. Somebody I think put in the QA something about a custom software. Is there a spot for that in higher ed? And we're living proof here at Dartmouth that there is, because our control ecosystem largely here is something that was custom built here, but it's based on common core IT technology. So like it's common programming languages. It uses GitLab. It uses various different repositories to control endpoints, and with that, there's a lot of tie-ins to our infrastructure ecosystem. So there's tie-ins to Canvas, there's tie-ins to our conferencing backbone as far as generating meetings, generating recordings. So a lot of that stuff, it's still expanding at campus here, but there's a lot of automation as far as the administrative work that goes into running a class. That is huge for us, because there's a lot of hours sunk into setting up all those administrative tasks that go along with it. But I totally agree with Lon. I totally see a future where rooms are going to be set up based on presets, based on user profiles of the people presenting. I see that coming. It's been coming for a long time. We just haven't gotten there, but I definitely think that's the next step once this is nailed for us.
Yeah, Cindy, this is a great one. There's a question here that I'm looking at that says, like what standards are being used for ensuring the compatibility, within the spaces. And, Matt and Lon, I mean, you definitely touched on it. And that is that, a control system that has the ability to take all of those various, components and pieces that, Matt was telling us about up there at the school, and working together with all of those technologies in their native forms is really what provides that full solution, right? It's not just one system that has to understand and interpret custom versions of everything, right? It's taking those native APIs or those native configurations, languages of those devices, and then mixing them together to form a complete solution.
Definitely, lots of questions coming in. Have you guys used NDI for multicam video conferencing? So,
Yeah, we're using it here at Geisel. We're not. Parts of Dartmouth are. The reason we haven't quite gotten there with Geisel is because we're using a manufacturer that happens to have their own version that's really similar to it, and we already like that product line. However, say that didn't exist, right? We totally would go the NDI route. But then there's also control for USB and how that gets tied into things. And, we're mostly Visca at this point for our control protocol. But we are looking really heavily into USB, which introduces all kinds of different complications to that question. But yes, we're familiar with NDI. And like Lon was saying, we also, not us at Geisel, but there's a part of Dartmouth that runs scripts on their computers that like reinitializes that and reboots it every day. So it's automatically scripted. It comes up nicely every day. And that's definitely something that we have in our ecosystem.
Craig, I think you, looks like you had a comment on this one.
No, it's interesting because one of the applications that was brought up earlier and even before in our pre-meetings was the ability to connect the camera by USB. Essentially just connecting it like a webcam, and on our most affordable PTZ camera, our 200, and our most advanced 510, both have USB-C connection capability. And I was thinking, why would anybody want to use that as a webcam? But here it is. So you just never know. But we just, it's our engineering team that's thinking ahead and also thinking, about the efficiencies that are out there and implementing that technology. So.
Great, thank you. So streaming has become a lot easier with all the products that you're talking about. How has this changed in the past, and how much do you see using streaming classes or in recording classes? Is that you're doing that more than you did before? Lon?
We do a lot of lecture capture and streaming on top of that. The issue comes in, especially in higher ed with streaming, it has to be captioned. So you're looking at another software, another whole thing just to avoid legal complications. There are people that have fun going out there and suing individual companies because they're not equitable. And it's being equitable again. I mean, it needs to be out there. It needs to be lecture captured. It needs to be correct. But yeah, we do a lot, some crazy number of terabytes of recording a year. It's we have a whole backbone and a whole department that's dedicated to just lecture capture.
Great. We've got so many questions coming in. I want to try to get to a couple more. Is wireless presentation important to higher ed? If so, what are you using to do that? So, Vinny,
yeah, for us, absolutely. Yeah. Anytime we can minimize the wires, we're all for it. However, there's drawbacks with that. You have to have network bandwidth. You got to have a stable computer that you're sharing from, or a tablet or mobile device, or whatever it might be. Luckily here, our network services team, our infrastructure is incredible. We have really robust bandwidth. So it's big for us. It's what we're pushing. And we use Zoom Wireless Share for that. We used to use other technologies, which worked well for us. But now with the shift towards hybrid, it just makes sense to already use that feature set that's already apparent in something else we're already using. So minimize boxes kind of deal for us. But yeah, it's pretty huge for us. That and backup HDMIs.
Right. So I'd like to ask attendees, thank you for submitting so many questions. And by the way, questions that we don't get to, you'll receive emails back with those answers. So for our attendees, do you have any specific questions for our manufacturer panelists? And while you're entering those questions, Lon and Matt, if you've got any questions, since we've got this really great forum for any of the manufacturers here, please go right ahead.
Fire away, fellas.
I mean, do you guys have like company-wide efforts to have a robust demo pool for universities or colleges that request demos? Because for us, we're deep in the game as far as development. We're building systems, we're designing them, we're engineering them. It sounds like Lon's in that same boat. So in certain channels, I'd say that, you know, we're essentially comparing ourselves to other integration companies that are out there. So getting us on that same par level is something that's always been a huge topic for conversation in higher ed. And it starts with demo pool, it starts with training. It'll eventually get into pricing, but I know that's another beefier, bigger conversation. It's a different kind of equity. But I just wanted to ask that question about demo pools, training, availability. Like, how do you guys see higher ed?
So great question. And from our Yamaha perspective, yes, we absolutely have a dedicated demo pool. The proof's always in the pudding, right? And with our Odessia solutions, we're anxious to get them in your hands because they really sell themselves. So yeah, we have even where you can drop the ceiling mic right in, we have a preset cutout to make these things easier. We have arrangements where we can ship these things back and forth. Higher ed is actually some of where we got our biggest traction with our ceiling mics and the Odessia solution as a whole, because of some the streaming. We have 4 interfaces within our controller for Odessia, right? And everything's really hinging on that USB plug and play capability for these wireless access as well. So yeah, we try to get demo equipment in your hand with our partner manufacturers. We work very closely with a lot of other manufacturers to make sure it's plug and play compatible, simplicity. We're really shifting towards that USB and Ethernet, just really plug and play, easy type of stuff. But yeah, let us know what you want to get. We're a big proponent of putting it in the educators' hands. We're a big supporter of HETMA, which is the Higher Education Alliance, where they've done a lot of testing with our equipment as well, with really fantastic feedback from those guys. So if you want to know more about Education Alliance that's doing this testing, please reach out to those guys too. They do a lot of testing of this equipment, really independent as an education space. So, and they rave about our stuff. So
I would echo that. Yeah, Tim, I would echo exactly what Tim's saying, right? I mean, you know, from our perspective, you know, we also have a demo pool of equipment. More than happy to get that into the hands of anybody that wants to take a look at it. You know, questions, you know, right drivers, you know, try to work on it from an R&D perspective to fit into your own ecosystems and parts. You know, I mean, we've also now begun extending in-person training again. We're getting that back up and running to provide that level of you know, knowledge back to you for any questions or support. You know, I mean, absolutely. As far as, you know, whatever is needed, there's a will, there's a way. We'll figure out how to help you get through whatever challenge that you're facing or overcome.
And from the JVC standpoint, we have a dedicated team of account managers that can support customers directly. Some of our success stories are actually based on the team working directly with the institutions to implement the system. We also work with the authorized JVC integrators so that demonstrations that, you know, incorporate our equipment with other people's equipment can be conducted and on site for these key customers. So definitely encourage having that communication with the company, and we're here to help you out.
Great, thank you. Great question. Two more topics I want to be able to cover. We've only got 10 minutes left. But right now, I'm very aware of college recruitment going on because I've got a friend who's taking her daughter all over the country. And she's not an athlete, but she's very interested in what the stadiums look like, which was a surprise to me. So that is a big deal. Talk about, Craig, actually, talk a little bit about technologies that are really advancing some of these sports stadiums and, creating that engagement.
So some of the key technologies that's available in the marketplace right now, I would have to say, is the ability to stream multiple events. And what schools are doing, they're starting to stream and cover sports that typically don't get any coverage, like tennis, like hockey, like lacrosse, things of that, sports of those type that typically wouldn't get the time of or airtime on, say, ESPN. Well, now because they're being streamed on the internet, there's more and more exposure to those, and schools are recognizing that outreach of the coverage is actually reaching out to not just the students, but also to the alumni, and for the people that have a connection to the institution and the schools, but they can't access the games. So that is a big deal. The other aspect is for the institutions to actually provide contribution content to, say, like an ESPN. So the equipment's being utilized in that manner as well. Some of the really cool technology that exists is that the scoreboard information, the game clock, the penalties, and the indications of who's on base, that kind of technology, that information can be posted real time on the screen of the streaming video directly through the camera. So you could actually buy a single device that can implement that data and provide it to the viewer real time, or you can provide it into your IP streaming system. And so that's not a manual, tedious, sometimes not so accurate input capability that can be done instantaneously into your production. So
it's easier than some might think to really create that engagement. So one other topic that we've got to get to very quickly, and I'm going to just put this to Kyle because it's an important one. I know everybody here has something to say about it, but we only have 6 minutes left. Security. It's huge. I mean, it's really a day long. But Kyle, if you could touch on security, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I appreciate it, Cindy. So, one of the big things that, if anybody has taken, from this, right, with all of these various technologies and things that are being put together is really the technologies have advanced from, we'll say analog to now digital, right? Everything is essentially got a network connection to it, whether it's powered from PoE or, but it has a network component, which allows for, remote operation and remote management, configuration, and, security of those devices is paramount in our opinion, here at Harman and AMX, and the ability to secure and ensure that that's a security standard is critical. So I would ask, Matt and Lon, I mean, is from your side in looking at a lot of these products, is security a vital component when you guys are looking at some of this stuff? Is your IT security teams, actively engaged in some of these decisions when it comes to components that are being used?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, if you're not friends with your IT people, or your networking team, make friends with them. We have to go through a risk assessment for every piece of equipment that goes online. So if we've never put one online, it has to be risk assessed. And if it's, I mean, most of the manufacturers get it now. They're aware that they need to be on a corporate style, layer 3 network system that's secure. And they're trying to maintain these network standards that the network engineers expect. And getting separate VLANs for stuff. I mean, almost everything we have in AV has a VLAN for it.
So, Lon, are some of those things? Oh, go ahead.
No, I'd just throw in real quick. We take it very seriously too at Yamaha with our security of our devices. We've always supported DHCP and SNMP. We now support 802.1x radius authentication. And it is a big deal to make sure that your components are secure, and you do have to make sure that they are enterprise class.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to ask. Lon, are you looking at things such as 802.1x? Are you looking at LDAP? Authentication and integration from a central user standpoint. Those types of protocols that are being used. A lot of networks today are zero trust, and we can absolutely spend a whole day talking about all this stuff that Cindy mentioned. But just to understand better of what it is that you're looking for or have experience with from a manufacturing perspective.
Personally, on my end, I really don't care at all. I'd really love to have my stuff on its own little private network and be a happy camper. That's not the case on my campus. I can't buy a network switch. If I do, it's flagged, it's tossed, and we start over. Everything that we have has to be on the building network, which is great because it forces us to do that and form that relationship with the networking team. And it also allows us to monitor that stuff, which we couldn't do remotely if it wasn't on a building network that we had access to.
Right.
Yeah.
That's one of the things we put on. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Cindy.
No, I want to get some Matt's feedback on what he does at with when it relates to security.
Yeah, 100%. It's huge for us. I wouldn't say we were as scrutinizing as Lon is with each piece of equipment. However, we kind of have indicators, right, of what's considered consumer, prosumer, pro equipment, and that kind of checks boxes for us. But since there's all kinds of things that just tie into higher education and privacy rights and all that. But in particular, because we're also medical, it's even a little bit stepped up, I think, in that regard. So, yeah, absolutely. We do buy switches, but the network switches that we have are vetted by our network services team, our central network services team. And then we share some of the responsibility of setting up the config files for those network switches. But they're all behind, I'm not doing justice here, but they're all behind firewalls. They're on VLANs. There's multi-layers of protection for us.
Great. So we have just a couple minutes left, so I want to give everybody a chance to kind of wrap this up. And Craig, what do you see in the near future and a little bit further down? I mean, there's AI to discuss. There's all different types of technologies coming up. What do you see higher ed looking like in the near future?
Well, I can see that just from this discussion, the collaboration of the various manufacturers, tying in the audio, the video, and really providing an environment for the instructor to focus on what they do best, which is to teach, and not have to worry about the technology that would enable the either the recording or the transmission of their classes. Personally, my wife is an adjunct professor. She struggled through COVID, and she had persevered, and I thank all the AV and the IT people for supporting all the the instructors through that turmoil. But it's amazing to see how much advancement we've seen in such a short amount of time.
Great. I want to go to Matt and Lon very quickly. If you would, let's say 2 years out, what changes do you expect to see in your classrooms? And let's start with Lon.
Less equipment. I think stuff's going to get to the point where you have NDI type cameras, so you don't have to put them into your PC. Your PC will ingest that on an NDI stream a lot easier than it does now. Dante Audio, you're going to have more than likely software-based codecs running within your PC that can take that Dante Audio in. There are some now. They're not super great. Your PC is limited a little bit, but it's going to be more of that, a lot of AI driving the stuff to determine, is this instructor doing a certain thing? Do I need to accomplish that task for them because they're at the whiteboard, or they're walking around the room? Do I need to track them? Very much like Craig said before, the whiteboard surfaces, do I need to zoom in on something because it's too small, I can't see it, type of thing. I think that's where it's headed right now.
Great. And Matt?
Yeah, I'd say a similar story for us. It's simplifying equipment, not overbuilding as much as we can for inputs, and really relying on installed computers or BYOD devices to tie into the system, probably over wireless. We're doing a lot of that now, but I see more of that happening. The biggest thing is just kind of tie into the AI piece that you brought in, is really driving decisions for us. So analyzing data sets from logs from equipment files to really see the reliability of the product, and then it's going to drive decision making. And that's really where I see our trend moving forward. But otherwise, echoing what Lon said.
Great, thank you. Tim, if you would.
Yeah, short term, kind of echoing what's already been mentioned. I think we're going to see more USB-C, more wireless BYOM, BYO. Simplicity, right? We want to get less disparate technologies, less analog, for sure, more digital. Long term, for sure, we're going to see a shift to really pretty much completely IP-based solutions for all the AV. I see that being an absolute fact. And you're going to see more collaboration and smarter collaboration with cloud storage of that collaboration, and more to do on the videos, smarter control of our cameras, and being able to share content. Much more cloud in the future. You're going to see where information is going to be stored, where people's documents are, and how we can all interact with those shared documents.
Great, thanks, Tim. And Kyle.
Yeah, so just to echo again, I mean, what everybody has said, but I see a simpler operation, less devices, easier to use, easier to manage, definitely network-centric, network-based, standard connectivities, all with the goal of achieving a simplified operation that's, quality and reliability proven.
Great, thank you. And Craig, did I get you on this one already?
Yes, you did.
I did first. Okay. So, thank you. Everyone's like, hey, first. So, thank you. This has really been an amazing discussion. There's been a lot of questions that we haven't been able to answer, and our panelists will get back to you. And don't forget to check out the related content. And this is being recorded. We've got a couple of questions. So being recorded, you'll be able to take a look tomorrow. And again, thank you so much for each of our panelists, and JVC, Harman, Sony, and Yamaha UC. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on more of our monthly webcasts. Have a great day.